Hello and welcome to a special bonus episode of Rewriting Bad Books. This is a bonus on repetition. Only now we're going to look at a passage from this book, which is Alistair MacLean's Puppet on a Chain. Ordinarily, this book is probably a little bit better than the books that we would expect to look at on this series, but this passage is particularly repetitious.
Repetitious, yeah.
That word? It is now. Alistair MacLean, actually as a writer, I don't mind. I've read 3 or 4 of his recently and read quite a lot when I was a younger man. And I've not minded any of them. But really the passage that we're looking at is just a little bit bland. And it uses the same word 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
So really we're looking at the structure of it rather than a complete rewrite, which is why this is a bonus episode.
Yes.
Not a full episode. So I'll read the passage.
Yeah.
I pulled myself onto the gangway and crouched there for a moment until I had located the source of the diesel, then stooped, ran quickly along the gangway till I came to the place where the barge was secured to a side gangway, first dropping to my hands and knees, then inching along on knees and elbows before peering over the edge of the gangway.
Are they on a gangway?
What's wrong with that?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're on a gangway or not on a gangway. I can't be sure.
Well, the interesting part about that is I worked on a marina for a year.
Did you? Did you run along a gangway?
and that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
And this is set in a marina.
Right.
And never once in working on the marina did I hear a pontoon called a gangway. I've only ever heard it called a pontoon.
Yeah.
So that's quite interesting. I wonder if you're a marine aficionado, you could tell me whether there actually is a difference between a pontoon and a gangway.
Yeah. I mean, I thought they were synonyms, really.
Yeah, I did as well. It just happened that we tended to use pontoon where we were.
Oh, right.
So there you go. I've never heard gangway used in that way.
He was son of a Scots minister,
Yeah.
brought up in Scotland. So
Yeah. So
maybe they do. Maybe it's a Scottish thing.
Maybe they do it differently in Scotland. Who knows?
Yeah.
Scottish people probably.
Yeah, they might know. Yeah.
So what's wrong with this original passage then?
Well, it's the same problem with the other passage we did in the last video, in that it's the repetition of that particular word, gangway, and I think it lifts you out of what you're reading.
It does.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah.
And it is harder.
Yeah.
Because the word that we were looking at before was fire and tent, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
there's plenty of synonyms or things you can do, but perhaps other than pontoon, which again may or may not be technically a different thing to do with the marina, it is hard to think of another synonym for gangway.
Yeah, but or even if you change the, if it's wooden or something, ran quickly along the wood till I came, that kind of thing. You could actually put the material in instead of gangway if you wanted to.
Ran quickly until I came to the place where the barge was. You don't need
the gangway, do you? No,
the
that's
word
right.
in there at all.
Yeah.
Particularly because you've already established where the character is in the first part when you say I pulled myself onto the gangway.
Yeah.
The sort of significance of pulling himself onto it. He jumped in the water to avoid people that were chasing him.
Yeah.
And then had to pull himself up. So it's quite a significant effort. He had been shot as well, as I recall. So there was an effort involved. So it kind of like reinforces, without requiring any extra effort on the author's part, that the location where he is, it takes an effort to get to it.
Yeah.
You've
it just seems
established it.
just a little bit convoluted, really, doesn't it? It doesn't need to be.
It is
like
awkward.
that, does it?
It is one of those things where synonyms perhaps aren't going to help you as much as they might.
Yes.
That you have such a limited supply of them. As far as the passage goes, we are only concerned with the repetition. The rest of it, it is what it is. It doesn't do anything great, which is a shock from MacLean, because he's usually a stronger writer than the rest of this scene suggests.
And from the character perspective, you don't get a sense that he could be actually. He's just had that enormous effort of pulling himself up again. There's no kind of description in there to sort of suggest that he's tired, his muscles are, blood pump. I mean, that's a little bit of a cliche, but do you know what I mean? There's nothing to sort of suggest that he's gone through some kind of physical activity.
Part of that, I think, is is the Bond trope. This is
a
secret agent type
It's a bit
figure
cool. Yeah.
that does everything in an easy style. Nothing's particularly hard for him. But I also, that contradicts part of the book in that later on it does become harder because he gets put in these life and death situations that do take out of him physically. But he has been shot here. He's been in the cold water in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So it is...
He's not just slipped out of a warm bath, has he?
so you would look at it, and even things like, I pulled myself, that's not a great verb.
No.
I crouched there for a moment, not a great verb. Stooped, ran quickly and along the gangway.
Yeah.
It's there's not a lot in there to be working with
to excite you, really, is
there?
No.
First dropping to my hands and knees, then inching along on elbows. I mean, inching is probably the first verb there that you'd go, okay, that's actually...
It carries some weight, doesn't it?
Carries some weight, but then you've got peering after that, which doesn't either. In terms of just the general writing, it could definitely be better.
Yeah.
But I am not proposing that we rewrite wholeheartedly. I'm proposing that we rewrite this scene in the way that we best deem avoids the repetition.
Yeah.
That's all. And it's only a shorter scene, so a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And then
we'll have a crack at that,
we'll have a crack at it
Okay.
and then come back and share what we've done.
I'll just get a head start.
Oh, you've already started? Oh, well, I get an extra bonus minute.
You won the last one. I've got to win this one, actually.
I'm sure I've won all of them. I don't remember losing any.
Yeah, go. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Mine's very similar. But
I've used, I believe, McLean's own words, but one I've just restructured it slightly to avoid the repetition. And before doing that, I have also done a version which is exactly the same.
Right.
I've literally only used synonyms or
okay.
or other technique.
Yeah.
I haven't done any more than that. So
it might be worth going.
So I
for
thought
that.
I would just do that. So I pulled myself onto the pontoon and crouched there for a moment until I had located the source of the diesel, then stooped, ran quickly along the gangway until I came to the place where the barge was docked, first dropping to my hands and knees, then inching along my knees and elbows before peering over the edge, or I can't recall if you're looking into a boat or into the water.
Yeah.
So you could just say looking inside.
Yeah.
Because we've already mentioned that he's looking at this barge that was docked, so it would be peering inside.
Yeah.
The docked barge.
But it's nice to know what they're peering over the edge and seeing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's basically what I've done is I swapped a synonym, gangway, change it to pontoon. Ran quickly along the gangway. You can actually just go run quickly along until I came to the place where the barge was docked. So I've actually just deleted the gangway.
Yeah.
And then the other one again, it's not quite using a synonym. I've changed where the barge was secured to a side gangway. I've just put where the barge was docked. The side gangway isn't relevant.
No, it's not.
If he doesn't go down it or use the side gangway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be there. So I've just put was docked. So it's not quite a synonym. It's slight restructuring.
Yeah. No, nice.
So that was basically a re-edit of that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a rewrite or anything like that, but it's very similar to my rewrite, which is just a slight change. So.
But again, we mentioned on the last video, it does amaze me that something can be in print, and still have this repetition of one particular word. Very closely together. It's like 4 or 5, isn't there? But any editor would pick up on this sort of thing, wouldn't they? Any basic editor would say, I think we've got a heavy concentration of the word gangway here. Let's just do something with that.
The very least.
Unless this is the pared down version.
Maybe it was even worse. Or even
He's like, oh God.
But you would have thought, wouldn't you, that if you're an editor, surely that's your job.
Yeah, well, that's right.
So you would just go, cross. Like if you'd used the wrong word, but it was obvious what the right word should be, perhaps it's homophone or something, then they would just expect you to change it. I wouldn't expect, like if I'd used the wrong witch, WITCH instead of WHICH, it's a typing error, just change it.
Just change it, yeah.
Would you consider the 4 uses of gangway in 4 lines of text an obvious error?
You'd certainly address it. You'd certainly
Yeah,
address it.
I don't think that I could just ignore that. Perhaps that's why.
As we say, unless this is the edited version.
Yeah.
Onto the gangway, I
Perhaps
pulled myself.
the editor spent all weekend going through this book and fixing all the errors, and then sent the wrong manuscript to the publisher.
He's like, oh.
You go home and your wife or whatever's there says, "I thought you were sending this manuscript," and I did it Friday. And they're looking and going. So let's share your one.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. I pulled myself onto the gangway and crouched until I had located the source of the diesel. I stooped and ran along till I came to the place where the barge was secured. Crawling, I then peered over the wooden edge into the water. So it's very basic.
Yeah.
It's very basic, but it kind of hopefully does what it's supposed to do.
What I found interesting about that is it's almost identical to his, and then it's like at the end you thought, I can't be bothered with this anymore. Because where he goes, I'm first dropping to my hands and knees, then inching along on knees and elbows, and you've just gone crawling.
Yeah.
And this whole thing is like the hands and knees and then inching along on knees and elbows is kind of weird.
It's a bit, isn't it?
In the context of this. Because it's suddenly so much more detail than the rest of it gives.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And it almost is contrary to this whole kind of suave, heroic kind of James Bond character. This is a little bit more timid action, isn't it? So it is kind of odd, actually, with what's preceded it.
So let me tell you what I've done, because you'll find that it's very similar, but you'll also see...
Well, you're a great writer as well.
...that it's kind of different. So have a look, have a listen, see if you pick it up.
Yeah.
Hauling myself up onto the gangway, I crouched there until I located the source of the diesel. Stooped, I ran to where the barge was secured. Then, inching on knees and elbows, I peered over the edge. Let me have a look at yours again, see if I can put into words.
Yeah, it's just the bottom one,
The difference I mean, it's like, see, you have, I pulled myself up onto the gangway, which is like an active voice. I did something.
Yeah.
Whereas I've started hauling myself up onto the gangway. I crouched there until I located the source of the diesel. You see the difference in that yours is like very much an active voice straight away.
Yours it's kind of passive, isn't it, in a way? But
No, it's not passive, but it's. I got hauling myself up. I can't remember what that type of verb is. Like hauling up would be like a phrasal verb or something like. I can't remember the exact terminology. It's been too long.
I was going to say,
but I put in the subject.
Yeah.
Myself. Yeah, it is passive voice, isn't it?
I think, yeah.
Because hauling myself up onto the gangway.
Actually,
we're tying ourselves in knots here.
I don't think it is a passive voice. No,
but it is just the subject of the verb is after the verb.
Hauling myself onto the gangway, I crouched. Yours is like it's a phrasal kind of thing, isn't it? It's like a.
And I've done that in both the first sentences.
Yeah.
Although this is an adverbial. Stooped. I ran to the place where the barge was secured.
Yeah, it's an adverbial one, isn't it? Yeah.
So that one is slightly different. In both instances, you have an I leading sentence. I pulled myself up. I stooped and ran.
Yeah. But there are times definitely where I think you want to do what you've done, just so you break it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think it could be more passive
voice. If we just call it passive voice because I think we're actually wrong and it's not, but I can't remember what it's actually called. So just so it's clear that we're talking about a slightly different way of doing it. In terms of character, a character that's a secret agent, that's a proactive. Not that this character is particularly in the book, but he at least thinks he is. Then that active voice, I did this, I went there, I went there, I was doing this, is probably more appropriate.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying
but
there.
At the same time, you really don't want too many sentences that follow on that lead with the I.
No, because it gets too much. You're putting the narrator in too much. And I would say a lot of the best sort of first-person narration is where that very obvious I does recede a little bit. It's not always there. It comes up. Sometimes I can read a book that's first-person, and this whole, paragraph after paragraph of description, interaction, and then the I comes into it, and you think, oh yeah, I think that's really clever. If you can weave your kind of narration without it, it's quite a clever thing to do, really, because it's very easy to just use that, as we're calling it, the active I did this, I did that, which I think is possibly you should avoid, really.
I think that you want to...
And sorry, Kev, that's really annoying me. I can't figure out what that is.
Yeah, no, I can't either.
Hauling myself up, It's modifying. It's like a modifying. It's like a...
Yeah, but at the same time it is a verb. So it is...
Yeah. Hauling, yeah.
Yes, anyway, I'm the clear victor. Another great victory for me in the scheme of things, even though we've got completely bogged down on what sort of verb that is.
Yeah, I know.
That's made a 10-minute video into 41 minutes now, because we haven't been able to work it out.
Let's get Norman on the phone, he'll know.
Do you know what? He probably would. Yeah. Because I think he would, because I think to get published back in those days...
He probably studied grammar, didn't he?
You had to study the grammar.
We didn't, did we, at school?
No, but I did it at university, and it was only a couple of years back, so I should really be able to remember it. But it is one of those things I haven't used.
Yeah, it's a shame, really, because it's quite a hard thing to grasp, and then when you sort of do, you don't use it, and then you forget it.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway, of the people, for the people. Oh no, that was the other video.
It's either... It's finite sets the tense, and non-finite doesn't, or finite means it has to have an object, and non-finite means it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then active is like, I did this. The most basic form is this. Okay, so who won? I did.
I think you did, yeah.
Why did I win?
Because you hauled yourself up onto the
Because I hauled myself up, yeah.
You picked yourself up when you needed to.
Just that in none of my 3 sentences did I begin with the word I.
Yeah.
Hands me a clear victory.
Actually, yeah, I think I should win, really.
No, you started 2 with I and 1 without, because I looked.
Did I? But is that not a natural sort of balance of sheer poetry?
It's childish and repetitive.
Yeah, so I pulled myself up onto the gangway and crouched until I had located the source of the diesel. I stooped and ran till I came. Yeah. It's the place where the barge was secured. Crawling, I then peered. Yeah, there's a lot of eyes in there.
Victory is mine.
Victory's yours again.
Yeah.
Is that only 1.5 though?
Yeah, I mean these bonus ones, they only count when I win because of the Christmas one that I lost. So.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, we don't count them.
That was a fine bit of poetry, wasn't it?
So the scores are now 87.
You've probably got about 2.
95 to 87, but we don't know to who.
Yeah.
So definitely check out all the other videos, and then you'll know who's winning.
That's true.
And the poetry one.
The poetry one
is really good.
It's marvellous.
And the Bad Sex Awards one is with absolute filth.
It's a bit of a gem, isn't it? I'm just looking at this adjective clause. I don't know if it's that either.
I don't think so. I can't believe that was supposed to be the shortest part of the video and ended up being the longest video. And by the way, with you sticking your bulging eyes into the camera like that, I'm going to use that as the thumbnail on this video.